Welcome to Folk Tales. I'm Dominic Zammit, Director at Boatfolk, and throughout this series I'll be joined by a wealth of guests from the UK's boating community who will be sharing their stories of lives spent in, on or by the water. This is a podcast by Boatfolk for Boatfolk. Today I'm joined by Vicky Williams from the Cardiff-based multi-award-winning sailing charity Challenge Wales. Hi Vicky, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks Dominic.
Glad to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us. As our listeners will find out in the next 30 minutes or so, you guys have been doing some amazing things and I just can't wait to hear about them. Let's just get started. First things first, tell us about Challenge Wales. What does the charity do and who are you?
So Challenge Wales helps young people to develop their life skills, to improve their employability prospects and develop potential. And we do that through what we call sail training. We have two vessels, Challenge Wales and Adventure Wales. And through sail training, we teach young people team building, communication skills. They develop confidence, develop resilience, improve their mental health, and hopefully we broaden their horizons so they could go on to things.
It's an incredible thing. I mean, how long have you guys been doing it now?
We've actually been doing it for 12 years. And through that time, we've seen hundreds of volunteers and we've worked with thousands of young people and picked up a couple of awards on our way too.
Excellent. This is a fantastic thing to hear. What's the demographic for you guys? Are you're called Challenge Wales, so assuming there's a bit of a southwest, West Country focus, but are you helping kids from all over or is the focus around Wales?
Our home port is Penarth, which is near Cardiff Bay. And yeah, we do a lot of our work in South Wales, West Wales and North Wales. Right. But we do go further afield. So we do one-day voyages that keep us fairly local.
Yep.
And then we do longer voyages that could, in the usual climate, take us to Ireland, to Scotland, to the south coast of England. And in the summer, we usually head overseas, tall ships racing. So representing Wales and the UK in large events, which could be in Denmark, France, Spain, or Portugal.
Amazing. You've been doing it for 12 years now. What is it that you're hoping to sort of instill in the lives of your young people? What is it that you're hoping to sort of change for the better for them?
I think it's giving them the opportunity to develop personally, the skills to move on to a job, to move back into training, to move into college. We want to just be able to, sometimes it's just sparking an interest. So we work with a huge range, a diverse range of young people, from those who are in school and university to those who are unemployed, those in care, those at risk of being homeless, BAME groups. And it's just trying to give them a different focus in their life in a really positive way. And being outdoors is great for mental health, is great for that digital detox away from that Xbox and phone and social media. And it just sparks that interest. It's really exciting.
No, it's incredible. I mean, obviously you're an on the water based charity, which makes perfect sense. I mean, what is it that you think makes the difference, by being on the water? What is it the water sort of brings to the party?
Being on the water, it's for many of the young people that we're working with, the majority are disadvantaged. They've never been on a boat before. It's something new, it's challenging, it's taking people out of their comfort zone. It's making people think about risk and taking risks while being in a safe environment. It's taking people away from the everyday issues that's affecting their lives. And I mentioned about the digital detox and improving their mental health. And it's sort of all that piled in together with working towards a common goal, developing those team skills. That's what sort of really makes a difference. And we've been in a position where we've been able to measure that. So before each trip, during the trip, after the trip, we're measuring, I guess, the journey that the young people are going on and being independently evaluated to show actually what we do, the sail training, does actually have this huge impact on young people and changing lives.
Fantastic. And I mean, do the young kids end up following a life on the water, to your knowledge? I mean, obviously it's been 12 years, so first cohort still as passionate about the water now as they were 12 years ago?
I'd like to think some of them are. The way we work with a lot of groups who work directly with the young people. So we only see them for part of the process, which is literally the voyage that they come on. But we do keep in touch with some of the groups and some of the young people. So we've seen young people go into a career in conservation and the environmental side of things. We've seen young people actually go into the Navy and Army because they've had a positive role model on board the boat when we've been on board with them and they've developed their leadership skills. We've seen young people go into a sailing career, and then we've just seen young people just being more confident to be able to apply for a shore-based job. So just working in the sort of local corner shop, that has actually been a huge achievement for them.
Right. And as you said earlier, your efforts haven't gone unnoticed. They've been recognised across numerous awards now, from the ITV People's Millions Awards to the Sail Training Organisation of the Year, which is just incredible. For the charity as a whole, what's sort of the proudest moment to date?
I think there's been quite a few. You mentioned Sail Training Organisation of the Year. We won that from a UK perspective, and then a few years later from an international perspective, which was actually unbelievable. And I think these awards actually recognise, the hard work and enthusiasm and passion that our volunteers bring to the organisation. But I think some of our sort of proudest moments was actually representing Wales and the young people of Cardiff at the Queen's Jubilee Pageant in London back in 2012, where we sailed the boat to London to be part of this huge event, and we were sailed there by young people, and they got the chance to go to London. We identified some young people who'd really benefit from that voyage. Yeah. So it took them a good few days to get around from Penarth and South Wales to London.
I was going to say that journey in itself was quite an achievement.
Yeah, I think we did a little bit of a crew change in Gosport and then sailed up the Thames, up to London. And I think that was such a memorable experience, tipping down with rain, but as sailors, we had the right equipment. We were in our waterproofs. We were fine. So I think that was one of the sort of real important moments.
No, that's incredible. I mean, it just makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? To get that sort of recognition, it's fantastic. And I mean, do you get to meet the Queen at something like that, or do you get any sort of interaction with her specifically, or is it a little bit more ceremonial than that?
Yeah, it was a little bit more ceremonial. We were moored up in one of the dock in St. Catherine Dock, and with people able to view the boat and meet the young people, and we were able to talk about our adventures. But we have had, Prince Edward on board. We're part of the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, so we have had royalty on board the boat, but unfortunately not the Queen. Yes.
Not yet. Yeah, give it time. Never say never. As we said, the awards are just recognition for the fact that you're doing such an incredible thing. And clearly the biggest achievement, beyond the awards is the fantastic impact you're having on the young people themselves. And your website, bit of a plug for the website for anyone that's listening, go and have a look. It's full of amazing examples of your great work. Do you have any favourite stories you can talk to us about? Any of the lives you've changed?
Yeah, well, we got some amazing case studies on challengewales.org, a bit of a plug there. The impact of what we do is so important, and we measure that as best we can for our funders. People can see where their money is being spent. I mean, we've got over 12 years, we've got so many stories. We could be here for the rest of the week. But one of I guess the one that stands out, call this person Luke. This person was an elective mute. We actually didn't know that when he came to the boat and joined us for a 5-day voyage. All we knew was that he lived with his grandparents, he lived in the valleys, he would spend a lot of time in his room on his Xbox. And he was supported by a youth worker who really felt that, he wasn't going to do very well later in life. Yeah. So we took him out on a voyage and he got involved with everything. So on one of our youth voyages, the young people will work in watches, they might do some night sailing, they'll be involved in all aspects of sailing the boat, and you don't need any sailing experience at all. Cooking for 18 people on time, cleaning and the washing up, and really being part of that team. During that voyage, he engaged with us and spoke with us. Amazing. And then he left the boat, and we kept in touch with the organisation that had put this person forward. Yeah. And he was inspired then to get his driving licence, to apply for his first job. And although he didn't get that first job, he was able to talk about how he worked as a team, the skills that he learned on the boat. But he then got a second job that he applied for. He got that. Again, inspired by this whole situation, his grandmother, who he lived with, went and started volunteering at a community centre. And then this person now has gone on to college. Amazing. And we understand he's working towards a business degree. So something just coming out sailing. Yeah. And in 5 days. And some of the youth groups we've worked with have said, the 5 days that they spend on board is the same as 6 months in a classroom. It is such an intense, challenging, fun experience. Yeah. We've also had, young people when we've been working in watches or doing night sailing. You're up every few hours, and some people have actually realised that there's 2 5 o'clocks in the day.
That's a bit of a sharp reality, isn't it, for some?
It is. And then a few years ago, we went to a tall ships regatta in Dublin and Liverpool. It was actually one of our first events, a 17-day voyage from Cardiff up to Liverpool, bit of racing, Dublin, back to Cardiff. And on board, we actually had a young magician. We didn't know that at the time. That's not usually the information we collect from people when they're booking on, whether you're a magician or not. This whole group that they were all booked on as individuals. They didn't know each other, all new to them, but they really bonded. And when we do a tall ships event, we have a tall ships crew parade where all the crews from the boat parade dressed up or whatever in the streets. And this magician they got everybody together in a little group, and they would form the shape of a dragon, and this magician would then come out and blow flame out of his hand, and it was, oh my goodness. Amazing. And it just all came together. So when the words Challenge Wales was said, they would all come together in the shape of a dragon, these young people, and then blow this flame and get a big roar from the crowd. So there's lots of things that are really special moments for us.
No, completely. I mean, the story you've just talked about with Luke and his grandparents, clearly what is 5 days for you has had a lifelong impact on not just Luke, actually, on his wider family. And, that is an incredible thing to be able to claim. So
exactly,
it's amazing. I mean, look, you mentioned the tall ship regatta. Obviously, Challenge Wales is a tall ship. What's her history? What's her background before she became part of the organisation, Challenge Wales?
So Challenge Wales originally took part in the world's toughest yacht race, sailing around the world the wrong way, so against the prevailing wind. And she was in a fleet of 12, so 12 boats of her type built and a prototype. Yeah. And then 2 races took place. And then, before the third race happened, that organisation went into liquidation and all the boats got sold off. So I believe we bought the last one. So from then onwards, she became Challenge Wales.
That's amazing. And that's where it all began, I guess. You've got this amazing vessel. How can you put it to good use?
Exactly. So, we received some funding, got the vessel, and then it is putting individuals, like the Round the World race, putting individuals together instead of sailing around the world for quite a lot of time. We start doing it in a day, putting it together, putting teams together, seeing young leaders develop, and having lots of fun at the same time.
It's amazing. And obviously you've got Adventure Wales as well as part of the fleet. Has she got an equally interesting background, or is she slightly newer, or what's the history there?
Adventure Wales is our 60-foot two-masted vessel. And she was actually privately owned. And she's actually almost 20 years older than Challenge Wales. So she's 40 years old. Like Challenge Wales, she went around the world, but at a little bit more of a leisurely pace in the world arc. And then she did a little bit of sail training on the south coast and the Isle of Wight. And we just had quite a bit of demand for our services. We were growing. So we secured some funding to actually purchase this second vessel. We knew she would work really well in sail training, particularly for those who might have mobility issues. Yeah. Challenge Wales is quite a big, hefty boat, but Adventure Wales can be sailed with slightly fewer people. It's a little bit easier to sail, so suitable for all abilities.
Amazing.
Yeah, both of them have been around the world, but in very different ways, and now both bobbing up and down in Penarth Marina.
Fantastic. That's what we like to hear. Obviously, Challenge Wales is more than just the boats. There's the fantastic crew behind it. So, who are the faces behind the organisation?
So we have a huge number of volunteers. We're predominantly volunteer run, which does actually surprise a lot of people when they see the types of trips we do and how we operate and how we've grown. So we have over 100 volunteers from all walks of life.
Great.
And they're the real backbone of the charity. They bring a lot of experience with them, whether it's, leadership experience, whether they've been sailors themselves or youth workers or teachers or IT people. Several have raced in the Clipper Around the World race and bring that experience as well. We've also got, we're run by trustees. Yep. Myself, I'm involved with sort of looking after the volunteers, finding the funding bids, writing the reports, doing the social media, sort of doing lots of little things. And then we've got our youth development officer who does the outreach work, reaching out to the young people that need us, finding those young people, because sometimes they may not want to be found or you don't expect them where they are. And then we've got our skipper and trustee who also looks after the maintenance and all the legal side of things and running the boats. Yeah, there's a couple of us in the office, but there's lots of us sort of running the project on the boat.
Amazing. No, that's incredible. And one of the things that isn't necessarily immediately obvious when we talk about the charity is the sideline mission, if you like, to actually protect our oceans. So there's quite a sustainability angle to Challenge Wales. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So sustainability and the ocean environment is really, really important to us and has got important as we've sort of been on our own journey. And it's when you're out sailing and you anchor off somewhere and you have the opportunity to go ashore, you find your pieces of plastic and your litter. When we're out sailing, you see abandoned fishing nets, which we've managed to hoist up on board the boat. We've also been, had an issue when we ourselves got tangled up in a fishing net, but we were able to obviously resolve that fairly safely. But it's all about, we want to play our part in raising awareness of the issues that are affecting our oceans. And we've done that in a variety of ways. So starting off from banning one-use plastic water bottles on board the boat. So we had a couple of sponsors that helped us fund reusable bottles that we can give to the young people.
Amazing.
We also want to be part of the bigger picture. We don't just want to do something just on our own doing it, but if we can inform the bigger picture, then that's the way we'll go. So we're part of some citizen science projects.
Great.
We'll do microplastic surveys on a sandy beach.
Yep.
And we'll measure plankton with our Secchi disc as part of another citizen science project. And plankton helps inform climate change.
Yep.
We've also developed accredited learning on board the boat. So we did that anyway, and then got an environmental project. So that's helped people understand about, when you even putting litter in the bin, how it does tend to, or it could have a tendency to blow away, get into a river, come down a river, into Cardiff Bay, through the barrage, out to the ocean and be off on it, out into the sea and off on its way. So we're just sort of trying to make people more aware of the problems and to help solve that problems. And we're always sort of asked, well, can one person just make an impact? And we say, well, yes, if you think one mosquito in a cabin can make a big impact, then one human can make an impact too.
Absolutely. No, I mean, as you know, boat folks share that mission with you, and we're doing everything we can to minimise our impact, educate and inspire, as you say, positive and responsible boating behaviour as much as anything else. So it's great to hear that we share that. I mean, look, Vicky, you've told us a lot about Challenge Wales. I want to hear a bit about you. What's your background? How did you end up with the charity?
Well, I've sort of got an interest in volunteering and travel. So I actually started off as a musician. That was my first, so I did my music degree. Don't worry, I'm not going to do a sea shanty now.
What instrument? Vocals, or have you got an obscure instrument that you are?
Piano and violin, as it happens. And part of that, I also did another subject in sport and leisure, and that got me involved in sort of marketing and finance and legal things. And that stemmed into working in marketing and travel, believe it or not.
Amazing.
So I used to work in the travel industry in London, and then ended up in sustainability back in Cardiff. Then went back into the travel industry, but slightly different. This was time travel with the Doctor Who experience in Cardiff. So we're Daleks and Cybermen. But during this time, Challenge Wales came onto the scene, and I was volunteering for the organisation. Yeah. So working in my full-time job elsewhere and then volunteering, and then sort of stumbled into Challenge Wales then. But I also did a lot of volunteering before, so volunteering for a national charity prior to this. And I was a 2012 London Olympic Games Maker volunteer. So working up in London during the Olympics and the Paralympics, which was one of the most amazing experiences. I just like be sort of volunteering and a bit of travel and meeting.
Here you are. That's amazing. And I mean, what about the water? You've got a passion for volunteering and helping, which is clear. Do you have a passion for the water, or is the water a bit of an aside?
I actually started off, my interest in water stemmed from dragon boat racing. I used to do dragon boat racing really competitively. I used to be one of the growing water sports years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
So got onto the water that way, dabbled in rowing, that wasn't my thing. And then, a friend got me into sailing, into cruiser sailing. Yep. And then with my future husband, we ended up getting a boat actually out in Malta and sailing out there quite a bit, which tied in at the time with my work. So yes, I've done a fair bit of sailing, but it's usually with a little bit of fair weather and blue waters. But yeah.
Why wouldn't you? To be fair, slightly different to manning a tall ship, but you've clearly got the water bug, which is amazing to hear. Okay, well, look, I mean, obviously we've had a challenging year behind us, but let's look to the future. I mean, what's next for Challenge Wales? What's going to happen when things are released, and what does the future hold?
So COVID has had a sort of, it's had a devastating impact on ourselves, on Challenge Wales, from the charity perspective that it stopped our fundraising. And part of our fundraising, or a lot of it, is actually taking adults of all ages out on our boats, big boat sailing. So they will pay for a day out with us, and that will help fund the young people to come on board. The whole outdoor sector has been affected with COVID, but luckily with funders we've been able to, and support, we've been able to manage the storm.
Right.
Pardon the pun. Really so for the rest of 2021, fingers crossed we'll be able to start off now with our volunteer crew training before we start getting back on the water with our young people and our guests. We'll then start hopefully doing our one-day voyages, accredited voyages with young people and our big boat sailing days. And then we'll start looking towards our residential activities. So that will take us, we've got plans to go up to, subject to lots of things, plans to go up to Scotland and to Southern Ireland, down to the south coast to do some competitive racing, hopefully around the island race.
Yeah.
And then go a little bit further afield, tall ships racing. So representing Wales, UK and Cardiff at this event, which will start in Falmouth in the UK and head to Spain and Portugal. So, there's obviously a lot of things up in the air at the moment, but we're staying optimistic.
Quite right.
And then we start planning for 2022 and getting more young people on board, securing and finding more funding, and hopefully having a lot more fun.
Amazing. I mean, I'm keeping everything crossed, obviously, for all of us, but specifically for you guys to be able to get out on the water and carry on doing the amazing work you're doing. Is there any way that our listeners can get involved? I mean, is there a way for them to support the charity, or they're interested in volunteering? How can they find out more? There's
lots of ways to support Challenge Wales, big and little ways.
Yep.
And you'll find some information on our website, challengewales.org. I think the main help we need is with volunteers.
Yep.
And volunteers who can crew the boats, so both Challenge Wales and Adventure Wales. So whether you've done a little bit of sailing or a lot of sailing, that doesn't matter. And you can pretty much live anywhere. One of our furthest volunteers lives in France.
Amazing.
And they come out volunteering with us. We also would love to have some volunteers that are of the tinkering type. So enjoy tinkering with engines and boats and general maintenance. And then we've got the fundraising side. So volunteers and your listeners who might want to get involved in doing some fundraising for us, whether it is something really small like doing a sponsored sale or a little cake bake, to something a lot larger by running the London Marathon or doing something for us. We're also keen to get in touch with organisations that work in the sustainability.
Yeah.
So there might be some of your listeners who work in that sector who can, help us grow and help us learn more and just support us a little bit while we're on that journey, which is just ongoing.
It's great.
Yeah, so lots of ways to get involved.
Amazing. Well, look, I think plenty of our listeners will feel inspired to get involved. And I guess the best bit of advice is to go to challengewales.org as your first port of call, and then go from there. Vicky will no doubt help you through the process.
That's right.
Great. Well, look, Vicky, thank you so much for talking to me. I mean, I feel uplifted actually just hearing all about the amazing things that you're doing. And like I said, I'm keeping everything crossed for you guys getting out on the water again soon. I'll look forward to seeing you down at Penarth Marina, and best of luck for the future.
Thanks very much. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to have a chat. And we look forward to welcoming you on board our vessels, and let us know. We'll pop the kettle on.
I will do. Speak to you soon.